Is she seriously going to sing in that? Harper's voice cut through the hallway like a blade. Loud enough. Deliberate. The kind of volume you use when you want to be heard. Madison Carter didn't have to turn around to know they were talking about her. She was already shrinking inside the old, faded gray hoodie she wore over her simple navy rehearsal dress, the kind her mom had bought from a clearance rack at Marshall's. Looks like she just stepped out of a thrift store. Oh wait, maybe she lives in one. Chloe's voice followed, dripping with sarcasm, and just beneath it, the unmistakable sound of a phone camera clicking. Brittany let out a high-pitched giggle, the kind that sounded rehearsed, like she was just waiting for the cue. Madison clenched the sheet music in her hand, careful not to wrinkle the edges. Her fingers trembled slightly. She'd spent hours practicing that song.
Hours.
Alone in her room. Headphones in. Door closed. But right now, under the fluorescence of Riverview High's polished hallways and the scrutiny of its self-declared royalty, her body wanted to vanish. "Don't look at them," she whispered to herself. "Keep walking." But the words didn't stop the sting. Didn't stop the tightness crawling up her throat. Didn't stop the heat rising to her ears. She passed them without saying a word, without lifting her eyes. That, of course, made it worse. "Wow, she's mute now," Chloe said with a mock pout. "Is that part of the act?" Harper laughed. "Maybe it's interpretive silence. Super edgy." Madison finally made it into the backstage corridor, where students were buzzing around with props, makeup kits, and tangled cords. She leaned against the wall for a second, letting herself breathe. She should have taken the side door. She knew better. But part of her had hoped. Maybe today would be different. Maybe the talent showcase would be a clean slate. Stupid. "Madison Carter," came a sharp voice from across the room. "Mrs. Doyle." Short hair, perfectly ironed pantsuit, clipboard in hand like it was a weapon. Her eyes, flat and perpetually unimpressed, landed on Madison with visible disdain. "You're up 6. Please don't make us run late." "Yes, ma'am," Madison said quietly. "You've submitted the music to the AV team, correct?" "I did. This morning." "Let's hope they got it right. We can't all improvise like Beyoncé." The joke wasn't funny, but a few students nearby smirked. Madison's cheeks burned again. She opened her folder to double-check the track number, not because she had to, but because it gave her hand something to do. Mrs. Doyle didn't move. "This is not an open mic night, Madison. This is a school event. You have 3 minutes. Please use them wisely." Madison nodded again, barely managing to hold her gaze. Doyle clicked her pen and scribbled something down. Then she walked off without another word. Madison found an empty chair in the corner and sat down, careful not to wrinkle her dress. Her heart was pounding like a metronome stuck on Allegro. In the distance, the MC's voice echoed from the stage. A comedy duo was finishing their act, the audience laughter leaking through the auditorium doors. Just behind her, someone whispered, "She's still trying?" And another chuckled. She knew that voice. Elijah Brandt. Football team. 11th grade. She remembered him from chorus last year, the one who once told her she sang like a gospel ghost. "Get ready to witness the awkward," he added, not even trying to lower his voice. "Cringe incoming." "Hey, be nice," a girl said next to him, half-heartedly. "She's just quiet, not talented," he finished. More snickers. Madison stared at the floor. Her shoes weren't even new. She'd cleaned them the night before, scrubbing the scuffed edges with a toothbrush and baking soda, like her mom taught her. Her mom. Elaine would be off her shift by now, probably already in the auditorium, saving a seat near the middle. She'd taken off work early just to be there. Madison's chest tightened. "Don't mess up," she whispered to herself. "Just sing. That's all you have to do."
It was almost time.
The fifth act, a junior doing a tap number, had just taken the stage. She stood up slowly, walking toward the wings. A tech student nodded at her and pointed to the X marked with white tape near the curtain. That's where she was supposed to stand. She took her place. From where she was, she could see the first few rows. Chloe was there. Of course. Sitting center right with her phone already in hand. Brittany and Harper on either side. Madison could see the screen glowing, recording, waiting. Not for her success.
For her fall.
Let's welcome our next performer, the MC announced. Madison Carter, performing an original vocal piece titled Without Fear. Applause followed, polite but brief. Madison stepped out. The spotlight hit her like heat. The silence felt too big. Her throat, suddenly too small. She clutched the mic. Her hands shook. She brought it to her lips. Chloe leaned forward and did a fake cough, loud enough to be picked up by the front row mics. "Good luck, girl," she said under her breath, but just audible enough. A group of boys in the back started whispering and giggling.
The track began.
A soft piano intro. Madison inhaled, but nothing came out. Her voice caught. Just air. No sound. She swallowed hard and tried again. A whisper. Barely a note. Laughter rose. It started small, a chuckle, a snort, but it grew. Like a wave of cruelty she couldn't outrun. "Is her mic off?" someone joked. "Maybe her talent is miming," said another. Chloe smiled, tilting her phone for the perfect shot. The camera caught everything. Madison's pale face, the trembling lip, the glossy eyes. Madison's lungs betrayed her. She couldn't breathe right, couldn't feel her fingers. The room tilted. Her chest tightened. Her voice, the one thing that had always been hers, refused to.
Come.
She stepped back, then turned.
And ran.
Out the side door, down the hallway, past the stage crew, who barely noticed. The laughter still echoing in her ears. She collapsed on a bench outside the backstage wing, behind the heavy red curtains, where no one could see her. Her breath came in short gasps.
Her hands were damp. Her eyes wet.
She was humiliated. Not because she failed.
But because they wanted her to.
Because they expected her to. Because somewhere inside, a part of her feared they might be right. That she didn't belong here. That her voice didn't matter. That maybe she was invisible. She didn't hear the footsteps approaching. Didn't notice the slight hush in the hallway. Until she heard someone say quietly, "Where is she?" And then softly, "I saw what happened." She looked up. Mr. Phillips, the school principal, was standing beside a man. A tall man, hands in his pockets, salt and pepper beard. Eyes she recognized instantly because she saw them in the mirror every day. Her father, Jonathan Price. He wasn't supposed to be here yet. He was scheduled to arrive at the end to give a motivational talk. But he had come early. He had seen. Madison froze. "Dad," she whispered. He stepped forward. "I'm here, Maddie," he said gently. "I'm here now." Her voice broke. "I couldn't do it." "You were never supposed to do it for them," he said, kneeling in front of her. "You do it because it's yours." "They laughed," she said. "They always laugh." He nodded slowly. "Because they're scared of what they don't understand. But they don't know you. They don't know your voice." She stared at him, blinking tears. "It's too late." "No," he said. "It's exactly the right time." She didn't understand. Not yet. But something in his tone, calm, firm, resolute, made her listen. And then she heard it. The crowd was murmuring. The MC's voice sounded confused. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special performance." Jonathan stood and reached out his hand. "Come with me," he said. "Let them hear what I've always known." She hesitated. The echoes of laughter still echoed. But his hand was steady. And for the first time all day, so was her heartbeat. She walked behind him slowly, as if each step might vanish under her feet. The hallway felt longer now, the noise from the auditorium louder, echoing like a distant thunder in her ears. Jonathan Price didn't say much as they moved. He didn't need to. His presence alone shifted something in the air. Students passing by glanced, then stared, then whispered. A few paused mid-step, eyes widening in recognition. It was him. That Jonathan Price. Her father. The name people wrote think pieces about. The face that graced Rolling Stone and NPR interviews and late-night shows. But here in Riverview High, he was just a storm approaching. Madison stayed close, heart racing, unsure if she was walking toward redemption or another failure. But her father never looked back. He trusted her to follow. And she did. Backstage, Mrs. Doyle stood frozen, clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. "Mr. Price," she stammered, trying to regain composure. "We weren't expecting you, so—" "I know," he said flatly. "But I arrived just in time to watch a room full of children laugh at a girl trying to share her voice." Silence. "And I watched a teacher do nothing." Madison stood behind him, her breath shallow, but her eyes locked on Doyle's face. For once, the woman didn't have anything clever to say. Jonathan turned to the sound technician. "Her track is loaded. Play it again. Cue the lights. I'll be on piano." "Wait, are you saying she's performing again?" Doyle asked, eyes darting. "The program is full. We have strict timing from the district. Make room," he said. And something in his voice, calm but unyielding, made everyone move. Doyle opened her mouth again, but the principal stepped forward. Mr. Phillips had the look of a man who just realized the walls of his house were built on sand. "Let her perform," he said quietly. "Let's allow the students to see what real talent looks like." Madison blinked. Did he just say that? Doyle's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. The MC was already announcing the surprise performance to a buzzing audience. Madison's stomach flipped as the lights dimmed. She could hear the murmurs growing. "It's him, right? Jonathan Price. No way that's his daughter. She's the girl who ran off stage. What's going on?" The curtains opened slowly. Jonathan sat at the grand piano, center stage, a single spotlight framing him. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He just waited. Madison stepped into the light, and the room, filled with the same students who had laughed, whispered, mocked, fell into a silence, so heavy it almost vibrated. She stood at the mic, breathing, grounded by the weight of her father's presence behind her, and the piano began to play. Soft at first, delicate, like footsteps on snow. Madison closed her eyes. The first note left her lips like an exhale. Then the next.
Clear.
Controlled. The kind of voice you don't expect from a girl that age. The kind of voice that makes people put down their phones without realizing it. The kind that demands silence, not through force, but through truth. No tremble now. No hesitation. The song wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was honest. And it carried every emotion she had swallowed for years. Every ignored hand raised in class. Every audition passed over. Every lunch eaten alone. Every name not called. Every joke thrown her way. Every glance that said, "You're not one of us." The crowd didn't move. Chloe stopped filming. Harper lowered her head. Brittany blinked, confused, unsure if she should still be smirking. Even the teachers in the front row looked like they'd swallowed something sour. Mrs. Doyle sat rigid, her jaw tight. But Jonathan, he watched with a stillness that was almost sacred. When the final note came, Madison held it. Just a second longer than needed. Then let it go. The auditorium stayed quiet. For a moment. Then the applause began. Not scattered. Not polite. It rose like thunder.
Real.
Earned. Standing ovation. Students stood.
Teachers.
Even the janitor, in the corner. Chloe didn't stand. But she didn't smile, either. The spotlight faded. The curtain closed. Backstage, Jonathan stood and walked to her.
"You did it," he said.
"I didn't think I could." That's what they wanted you to believe. But now they know. She was still shaking, but it was a different kind of tremble, release, not fear. A wave of students flooded backstage, buzzing, talking. Some approached her, hesitant, cautious. "Madison, that was wow. You sing like that all the time? Why didn't you say you were his daughter?" She just smiled. She didn't need to explain anything. Not tonight. Mr. Phillips pulled Jonathan aside. That was unexpected. And powerful. Jonathan didn't respond immediately. He looked at Madison, then back at the principal. "What's her GPA?" Phillips blinked. Madison's? 4.0, I believe. Very bright. And yet, she wasn't chosen for the school choir this semester, Jonathan said calmly. Despite auditioning. Phillips looked uncomfortable. Well, the selection committee was led by Mrs. Doyle, Jonathan said. Correct. Yes, but I'm sure it was merit-based. Do you have recordings of the auditions? Phillips hesitated. I'd have to check. Please do. I'd like to hear them. That silence again. Heavy. Damning. Madison watched the exchange, a slow dawning in her eyes. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The ride home was quiet. Elaine met them at the car, wrapping Madison in a tight hug. You were brilliant, she whispered. I knew you would be. In the back seat, Madison looked out the window. The school disappeared behind them, but the memory didn't. Not the laughter. Not the music. Not the way they looked at her after. Something had shifted, but she didn't know yet how deep that shift would go. The next day, everything changed. Her locker had sticky notes on it, some kind, some anonymous. You were amazing. Sorry I laughed. I didn't know you could sing like that. In history class, Ms. Franklin asked her to lead a discussion on protest music. In math, someone actually offered her a seat. Chloe didn't speak to her, but Brittany did. Briefly. Hey, you were, like, really good. Just saying. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. Harper avoided eye contact. At lunch, Madison sat with her usual sandwich and apple. Alone. Until a girl from the drama club approached. Can I sit? She asked. Sure. They didn't talk much, but it felt different. Doyle passed her in the hallway later that day. No snide comment. No glare. Just silence. But it was the kind of silence that hides a storm. That night, Jonathan called. You okay? He asked. Yeah. You were brave, Maddie. Thanks, Dad. I'm proud of you. You're the real thing. After they hung up, Madison opened her laptop. She had a message request from a girl named Celia, a junior she remembered from the choir auditions last fall. The message read, Hey, I just wanted you to know, I heard your audition back in October. You were better than all of us. We all said it, but they picked someone else. Everyone knew why. Madison stared at the screen. Her hand shook again, not from fear, but from truth. The kind that burns, the kind that reveals, the kind you can't unhear. She sat there, in the dark, the glow of the message lighting her face. And in that moment, she realized, they hadn't just laughed at her on stage. They'd been silencing her long before that. Quietly, systematically. But not anymore. By Wednesday, the air in Riverview High felt different. Not better. Not safer. Just charged, like a storm waiting to break. The video of Madison's performance had already made the rounds online, first through private stories, then reposted by students who had once laughed at her and now praised her like they'd always known. Madison Carter's voice is unreal. She literally shut the whole school up. She's Jonathan Pryce's daughter? But what no one posted, what no one talked about publicly, was what happened before the song. The laughter. The humiliation. The silence from the teachers. That part stayed buried. Except for those who felt it in their bones. Madison walked through the halls with a strange kind of attention around her. People moved. People stared. But they didn't speak. Not really. It wasn't adoration. It was adjustment. Like they were recalibrating her identity. Trying to figure out how someone they dismissed on Monday had become someone they couldn't ignore by Friday. In English class, Ms. Gardner asked if she'd be interested in writing a piece for the school paper. Something about finding your voice, she suggested, smiling too warmly. Madison just nodded. She knew what this was. A performance of apology. But words weren't going to fix what was broken. Not until the truth came out. She hadn't told anyone about Celia's message yet. Not her mom. Not her dad. Not even herself, not out loud. She'd read it 3 times that night, then saved a screenshot in case it disappeared. You were better than all of us. But they picked someone else. Everyone knew why. Why? One word. Heavy enough to shake the foundation. The pieces were starting to connect in her mind. The coldness from Mrs. Doyle, the forced smile at the audition, the way her name was skipped over when the choir list was posted with no explanation. At the time, Madison had told herself it was politics or seniority or just bad luck. But she'd known. Deep down, she'd known. She just hadn't wanted to believe it. Not until someone else said it out loud. On Thursday afternoon, Jonathan showed up again. This time during school hours, and not alone. He walked into the administrative office with calm precision, a man who'd spent decades in boardrooms where people tried to talk over him. He didn't come for a speech. He came with questions, with demands, with a request for transparency. I'd like to formally request access to the audition evaluations from the fall choir selection, he told Mr. Phillips, who suddenly found his throat dry. And recordings, if available. Mr. Price, I don't know that those documents are public, the principal said carefully. These are internal processes. This is a public school, Jonathan interrupted. Funded by taxpayers. Your audition process isn't a secret court. Phillips adjusted his tie. Let me speak to the district. Do that, Jonathan said, then added. Also, you should know, I've already spoken to an education lawyer. Just to be informed. That part was a lie. But it worked. Within 24 hours, a small file of evaluations was emailed to Jonathan and Elaine. There were only 3 judges listed, Mrs. Catherine Doyle, Mr. Frederick Harmon from the music department, and Ms. Jenna Tyler, the drama coach. Madison sat on the couch as her parents scrolled through the PDFs. Her hands were clenched. Her heart was thudding so loudly, she barely heard anything. Jonathan clicked into her audition sheet first. Harmon had scored her a 9.5 out of 10. Vocal clarity, excellent. Emotional interpretation, powerful. Stage presence, developing but promising. Ms. Tyler had given her a 9. Unpolished, but deeply moving. Rare tone. Recommend for mentorship. And then came Doyle. 6.0, comments. Lacks confidence. Tone inconsistent. Not suitable for group performances. Elaine stared at the screen, her mouth slightly open. A 6, she whispered. Jonathan didn't speak. His hand hovered over the trackpad. That's not subjective, he said. That's sabotage. They opened the file for the student who was given the last spot on the choir roster, a girl named Olivia Bryant.
White.
Junior. Known to be close to Doyle. Her scores, 8.0 from Harmon, 7.5 from Tyler, 9.5 from Doyle. This isn't a mistake, Elaine said, sitting forward. This is deliberate. Do you know Olivia? Jonathan asked Madison gently. Madison nodded slowly. She forgot her lyrics during the audition.
Twice.
I remember because I thought, maybe I'd get in after all. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick with the weight of injustice, the sharp edges of a truth that had been hidden in plain sight. What do you want to do? Jonathan asked her finally. We can go to the district.
We can take this public.
We can make noise. Madison looked down. She thought about Chloe's laughter, Harper's filming, the way Doyle's voice always seemed to come wrapped in condescension. And she thought about that stage, the moment she took it back. I don't want noise, she said softly. I want them to say it. I want them to admit it. The next day, during second period, she was called to the office. Mrs. Doyle was already there, seated stiffly, arms crossed. Mr. Phillips offered her a tight smile. Madison, come in. We wanted to follow up about your audition concerns. What concerns? She asked. Her voice was steady. You sent the scores. Phillips glanced at Doyle, then back. We wanted to clarify that the audition process is holistic. Subjective, yes, but based on multiple factors, including group dynamics. And race? She asked, cutting him off. The room went still. Phillips blinked. Excuse me? One judge gave me a 6, Madison said. The other 2 scored me near perfect. The same judge who scored a friend of hers much higher, even after she forgot lyrics. That's not subjective. That's targeted. Mrs. Doyle opened her mouth. Madison, your tone is... My tone is fine, she said, eyes locked on her. You told me I wasn't choir material.
You didn't say why.
But I know why. You're making serious accusations, Doyle snapped. And I hope you understand the implications. Do you? Madison said. Because the district is going to. I sent them the recordings. Phillips looked up sharply. You what? Mr. Harmon kept backups, Madison said. He didn't know they weren't used. He sent them to me when I asked. I sent them to the district's equity board last night.
It was a lie.
A risky one.
But she watched it land.
Doyle paled. Phillips exhaled slowly. We'll review this carefully, he said. In the meantime, we ask that you not discuss this with other students until the district responds.
Don't worry, Madison said, standing.
They're already talking. As she walked out, Doyle didn't speak. For the first time, she looked small. Days passed. Then a week. Rumors grew. Someone leaked the score sheets. Another student admitted that Doyle had told her Madison's voice was too gospel for the choir's style. The district opened a formal review. And then, finally, a school-wide email was sent. Mrs. Doyle would be transitioning out of her role at the end of the semester. No explanation given. But everyone knew. Madison didn't gloat. She didn't post. She didn't celebrate. Instead, she asked for a meeting with the choir director, the new one. She auditioned again. And this time, she was accepted with unanimous approval. When the new season of performances began, she stood center stage. No shaking hands. No tight throat. No invisible voice. She sang with the knowledge that she'd earned it, and that they'd tried to erase her before she ever opened her mouth.
But she sang anyway.
Because they couldn't unwrite what she was born to be. Her voice was never the problem. Their fear of it was. The hallways of Riverview High felt quieter now, not because the noise had gone, but because the energy had changed. There was a kind of stiffness in the air, the awkward tension of a place trying to pretend nothing happened, while everyone knew something had. Mrs. Doyle's absence was immediate. Her door was locked, the glass dark, the nameplate removed. No official announcement had been made beyond the email, but students whispered her name like a ghost story. Some said she had resigned. Others said she was forced out. No one knew the full truth, but everyone had felt the tremor when she left. Madison didn't feel victorious. She felt watched. Not like before, when she was invisible in a way that burned. This was different. Now people looked at her and hesitated, uncertain whether to treat her as a hero or a threat. You really went after her, a boy from chemistry class told her at lunch. Not many people would have done that. She went after me first, Madison replied simply, and he didn't have anything to say after that. Chloe and her circle had grown quiet, more careful. They no longer threw insults in the hallway or made loud comments about her clothes. They didn't say much of anything anymore. Just exchanged glances, watched her pass. One afternoon, Madison found a note in her locker. No name, just a folded sheet of notebook paper that read, "I'm sorry for laughing. I was scared to say something. But I knew it wasn't right." She didn't keep the note, but she remembered it. Mr. Phillips, now visibly more cautious in every staff meeting and school event, called her and her mother in for a meeting the following week. Elaine sat across from him with a posture that said she wasn't here to be managed. Madison sat quiet but alert. "I want to apologize again for everything that's happened," he began, hands folded on the desk. "This school failed you, Madison, and I take responsibility for that." Elaine raised an eyebrow. "Is this a personal apology or a legal one?" Phillips smiled thinly. "Both, if that's what you need it to be." "What we need," Elaine said, "is change. Not just quiet meetings after something blows up." He nodded. "We're reviewing all selection processes for performance groups. From now on, every audition will be recorded and judged anonymously, with results made available to the students who audition." "And the staff?" Madison asked. "Will they be reviewed too?" There was a pause. Then a nod. "The district has launched a new equity oversight committee. Teacher conduct, grading patterns, and student reports will be part of a quarterly review." Elaine leaned back slightly, processing. "We'll see." As they left the office, Madison felt the weight of something shift off her shoulders. Not entirely, but enough to stand taller. She was being heard now, not silenced. The new choir director, Ms. Rivera, was young, Latina, and completely uninterested in the old ways. She didn't ask for resumes or family backgrounds. She just listened. On the first day of rehearsals, she gathered the group in a circle. I don't care where you've sung or who you know, she said. Your voice is enough. Madison hadn't realized how much she needed to hear that until the words landed. Her voice. Enough. In rehearsal, she found herself not just singing but leading. Other students looked to her during harmonies. They asked her advice. They listened. Celia, the girl who had messaged her weeks ago, was in the group too. One day after practice, she approached Madison and said, I was scared. Back then. I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to lose my spot. That's not an excuse, but I needed to tell you that. Madison nodded.
Thank you, she said.
It means something. They weren't friends. Not exactly. But there was respect now. A kind of earned trust. Outside of choir, things were still complicated. Some teachers overcompensated, trying too hard to praise her. Others avoided her entirely, as if afraid of saying the wrong thing. A few students accused her of playing the victim, though never to her face. Madison didn't respond to whispers anymore. She responded with presence, with clarity, with music. At home, things had changed too. Her mother had started coming home earlier, cooking more, laughing more. Elaine had watched her daughter cross through fire and come out clearer, and it softened something in her that had been hardened by years of sacrifice. Jonathan called more often now, checking in, listening instead of advising. One night, she asked him, Did you ever feel like they were trying to erase you? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, All the time. But I kept playing anyway. Because that was the only thing they couldn't take from me. Madison sat with that. A truth she felt now in her bones. Spring came quickly. The showcase was only a few weeks away, the official one, this time, with the full school choir. Madison had a solo. It wasn't something she requested. Ms. Rivera had chosen her. No discussion. No politics. Just talent. Rehearsals were long. Demanding.
Exhausting.
But every time she opened her mouth, something moved. Something shifted. She was no longer trying to prove she belonged. She just did. And people noticed. Chloe did too. One afternoon, as Madison packed up her bag in the music room, Chloe walked in. Alone. For a moment, neither said anything. Then Chloe spoke, arms folded, voice brittle. You're not going to stop, are you? Madison looked at her, confused. Stop what? All of this. Making everything about you. Acting like the school owes you something. Madison blinked slowly. You think I wanted any of this? Chloe scoffed. You're getting attention. Sympathy. People worship you now. They laughed at me.
You laughed at me.
You filmed me when I was breaking. And you think this is about attention? Chloe's jaw tightened. You think you're better than everyone now. No, Madison said calmly. I think I'm finally being seen for who I am. And that threatens you. Chloe's face flushed, but she didn't respond. She turned and walked out. Madison didn't follow. She didn't have to. Chloe would carry her own discomfort. Madison had enough of her own to lay down. That night, she sat in her room. The sheet music spread across her bed, headphones in, volume low. She thought about what her father had said, about how they'll try to erase you. Not with fire or fists, but with silence, with absence, with exclusion. But they hadn't erased her. They'd watched her rise. Not because of them. In spite of them. And now, as the final showcase neared, she knew exactly what she wanted to say. Not with a speech. With a song. One they couldn't laugh at. One they couldn't mute. One they would remember. The final showcase was held on a warm Friday evening in late May, just as the sun began its slow descent behind the trees surrounding Riverview High. The auditorium was full, fuller than anyone could remember, with parents, teachers, students, and members of the local arts community who had heard the murmurs about the new direction of the school's music program. On stage, the choir stood in neat formation, dressed in matching dark blue, soft lighting casting long shadows behind them. Madison stood near the center, not in front, not above, but firmly among them. Equal. Present. The program had been carefully curated by Ms. Rivera, each piece chosen for what it meant rather than how flashy it sounded. There were harmonies about community, about growth, about rising again after being pushed down. And near the end of the show, the lights dimmed slightly, and Ms. Rivera stepped forward with a microphone in hand. She didn't need a podium. Her voice was calm, her words deliberate. "This next solo," she said, "belongs to a student who taught us that silence can be just as powerful as a scream, and that sometimes the most important voices are the ones that were nearly lost." The spotlight found Madison slowly. No music had started yet. It was just her. The auditorium held its breath. Then, from the edge of the stage, Jonathan stepped into view, sitting at the piano once again. No announcement this time, no whispers, just recognition. He nodded once at his daughter. She nodded back. And then the song began. It wasn't the same song as before. This one was quieter, deeper, more reflective. A song about walking through fear and coming out on the other side with your voice intact. A song without glitter or high notes meant to impress. It was all heart. Madison's voice had grown since the last time she stood on that stage. Not just stronger, wiser. She wasn't performing to prove anything. She was telling the truth. Her truth. Her pain and her joy braided into every word. People didn't blink. Phones weren't raised. It wasn't that kind of moment. It was one you wanted to feel in real time, unfiltered. And when it ended, the room stayed quiet for a second longer than expected, not because they didn't know it was over, but because they didn't want it to be. And then, again, the applause. But this time it didn't feel like surprise or shock. It felt like recognition. Like the school, for the first time, truly saw her. Elaine stood in the back, her hands clasped over her mouth, eyes full. Ms. Rivera wiped away a tear discreetly. And even Mr. Phillips, from his corner seat in the third row, stood slowly, joining the wave of clapping that filled the auditorium. Madison stepped back into the choir formation, and they finished the final group piece together, not as soloists, not as competitors, but as voices in harmony. After the show, in the hallway outside the auditorium, people lined up to speak with her. Students, teachers, even some parents. But Madison didn't seek praise. She thanked them politely, took their words with grace, and stood grounded, feet on the same floor that once trembled under her. Celia gave her a long hug. "You changed things," she whispered. "Maybe," Madison said. "Or maybe I just stopped letting them change me." Chloe didn't approach her. She stood across the hallway, quiet, unreadable. And that was fine. Madison didn't need anything from her. Not anymore. Outside, the air was thick with summer and the smell of freshly cut grass. Jonathan stood by the car, waiting for her. "You sounded like yourself tonight," he said. "I finally heard you." Madison smiled. "I finally heard me too." They drove in silence for a while. The windows cracked open, the wind soft against her face. In the rearview mirror, the school disappeared behind them, not erased, not forgotten, but reclaimed. Later that night, in her room, Madison sat by the window with her headphones around her neck, legs pulled up to her chest. The stars were faint through the trees, but they were there. And for the first time in a long time, the silence around her felt gentle. She didn't feel small inside it. She felt whole. There would be other performances, other stages. But this had been the one that mattered most. Not because of the audience,